you're not lazy. And if you're ambitious, labeling yourself lazy is poison. Lazy people don't think about their future at midnight. They don't feel like time is slipping. They don't worry about wasted potential. They don't carry the constant pressure inside. What you're actually feeling is overload. Your ambition grew faster than the systems underneath it. So your brain didn't push harder. It hit the brakes. And instead of fixing the structure, you started blaming yourself. I've seen this pattern break founders, operators, and high performers for years. In this video, I'll show you why ambitious people freeze and the exact operating system that gets you moving again without burning out or hating yourself. So let me slow this down for a second, because if I asked you why you're stuck, you'd probably say something like, I just need to be more disciplined. I need to stop procrastinating. I need to push harder. That sounds reasonable, but it also sounds completely wrong. Here's the easier truth. You're trying to do too much with no structure to hold it. And when the brain feels overloaded, it doesn't speed up, it shuts down. That's not laziness, that's protection. I know this pattern really well because I've lived it from both sides. When I was building businesses, there were seasons where I felt sharp, focused, and unstoppable. And then there were seasons where everything felt heavy. Same ambition, same work ethic, same person, different structure. That difference is everything. So if this feels familiar, here's the part nobody explains. The reason this keeps happening isn't because you don't want it badly enough. It's because you're trying to start at the wrong place. And once you see this, everything starts to make sense. Let me explain this in the simplest way possible. Imagine trying to carry 10 grocery bags at once. You're strong enough, you care enough, you really want to get them inside. But halfway there, your hand starts hurting. The bags dig into your fingers. Things start slipping. Do you walk faster? No, you stop. Not because you're lazy, because you are overloaded. That's what's happening in your life. Your goals are the grocery bags. Your systems are your hands. When the load gets too heavy, your brain doesn't push you forward. It pulls you back. That's why you freeze. That's why you scroll. That's why starting feels hard. Not because you're broken, because you are trying to carry too much at once. So the question isn't, how do I become more disciplined? The real question is, how do I make the load lighter so my brain feels safe enough to move? And once you see that, everything shifts. Because here's where most ambitious people go wrong. When they feel stuck, they try to make a big move, a big plan, a big reset, a big this time I'm serious kind of moment. That feels logical, but your brain doesn't want big right now. It wants proof, tiny proof. Think about it like this. If you don't trust a bridge, you don't run across it. You test it, one step, then another. Your brain works the same way. It doesn't need motivation. It needs evidence. Evidence that moving won't hurt. So instead of asking, what's the right plan? Ask this. What's the smallest thing I can do that proves I'm not stuck? Not impressive, not perfect, just real. So maybe it's this. I want this to be perfect, and that's what's stopping me from starting. Or this, I don't know the next step, so I've been pretending this doesn't exist. That's it. You don't fix it, you don't solve it, you don't make a plan, you just say it. When you do that, something important happens. Your brain goes, oh, we can move. That's a clue. And clues change everything. Because once your brain sees movement, it starts looking for the next step instead of the exit. You don't feel confident yet. That's fine. Confidence doesn't come first. Movement does. Now here's where most people mess this up. They take one small step and then immediately ask, okay, what am I really supposed to do? That question feels responsible, but it quietly puts all the weight back on your brain. And the moment your brain feels pressure again, it does what it always does. It stops. Because what you're really asking is, can you guarantee this works before I keep going? And life doesn't work like that. Which brings us to the thing nobody explains clearly. So let's connect the dots. If your clue is, I want this perfect, and that's why I'm stuck. Or, I don't know the next step, so I pretend this doesn't exist. Here's the truth. You're not missing clarity. You're avoiding the first clue. Clarity does not show up in your head. It shows up after you move. Think about trying to learn to ride a bike. You can sit there and think about balance all day. You can watch videos. You can imagine yourself riding perfectly, but you don't actually learn until you push the pedal. The first few seconds feel shaky. Then your body adjusts. Then staying upright gets easier. Movement teaches faster than thinking. When you sit and think, what's the best plan? Your brain gets louder, not clearer. That's why you feel confused. Not because you're bad at thinking, but because thinking without movement creates fog. You keep rewriting the plan because you're afraid the first move will be wrong. So, do the version you already know isn't perfect. Bad versions show you what actually matters. Perfect versions keep you frozen. You keep remembering the tasks all day but never touch it. So open it and set it up. Don't finish it, don't fix it. Once it's no longer a mystery, the fear drops. None of that comes from waiting. It only comes from doing something real. That's the shift. And once you see that, the pressure drops. Because now your job isn't to figure out the whole path. Your job is to just take one step that gives you information. That's it. And once you see that, something else becomes clear. You don't feel better before you move. You feel better because you moved. That tiny action doesn't just give you clarity. It gives you something else you have been waiting for without realizing it. That something is confidence. And this is where most people get it wrong. They think confidence comes first. Like one day you wake up and feel ready. That's not how it works. Confidence is not a feeling, it's a memory. It's your brain saying, last time I tried, I survived. Think about the first time you ever did something new. First day of school, first job, first workout, first time speaking up. You weren't confident, you were nervous. Confidence only showed up when you did the thing and realized world didn't end. That's why waiting to feel confident keeps you stuck. Your brain has no proof yet, so it plays it safe. That hesitation you feel, that's not weakness. That's your brain saying, I don't have that enough evidence yet. And the only way to give it evidence is through small wins. Very small wins. Not change your whole life. Not become a new person. Just, I did one small thing I said I would do. That's it. When you do that once, your brain stores it. When you do it again, your brain starts to trust you. And when your brain trusts you, action feels lighter. Not because life got easier, but because fear got quieter. That's how confidence is built. Not by hype, not by motivation, by keeping tiny promise to yourself. You blocked 10 minutes and didn't cancel. You showed up when your brain expected you to quit. You finished a tiny task without overthinking it. You started before you felt ready. You stopped waiting for motivation. Each one is small, but together they change the story in your head. And once that story starts to change, something else shifts too. Because now you don't just know what to do, you trust yourself to do it. And once you understand that, something important clicks. If confidence comes from small wins, then the real problem is in motivation. It's this: why do so many people never get one small win? Not because they don't care, not because they're lazy, but because something keeps getting in the way before they even start. And that something is friction. And most of that friction isn't inside you, it's around you. Let me ask you something simple. Have you ever sat down to work and somehow ended up on your phone? Not because you wanted to, not because you're lazy, it just happened. That's not a character flaw. That's your environment doing exactly what it was designed to do. Your brain is lazy about energy, not effort. It always chooses the easiest next move. So if your phone is on the table, your brain grabs it. If the couch is closer than your laptop, your brain sits. If your goal is buried under clutter, noise and distraction, your brain says not now. Think about a grocery store. Candy is at an eye level. Healthy food is hidden in the back. It's not because people love candy more, it's because what's easiest gets chosen. Your life works the same way. When your environment makes the right action hard, you feel unmotivated. When your environment makes the wrong action easy, you feel out of control. And then you blame yourself. But here's the quiet truth. Most people don't fail because they lack discipline. They fail because their setup never gave them a fair chance. When the room is loud, the tasks feel heavy. When the room is calm, the task feels lighter. Same person, same goal, different setup. And once you see this, something shifts. Because now the question isn't what's wrong with me, it becomes what can I move, remove, or simplify so the next step is obvious. That's where progress actually starts. And once the environment stops fighting you, action doesn't feel scary anymore. It feels normal. That's when progress finally becomes possible. But here's what surprises most people. Even when things feel easier, habits still fall apart. Because once the setup stops fighting you, you expect things to suddenly click. And sometimes they don't. You try again, you miss a day, and that old thought comes back. See, I never stick to anything. That sentence is heavier than it sounds because your brain believes the story you tell it. If the story is, I'm bad at consistency, then every missed day feels like proof, and proof kills momentum. Here's the part nobody explains in a simple way. You can't build habits on top of an identity that doesn't believe you. It's like trying to stack blocks on a table that's already wobbling. They keep falling not because the blocks are bad, but because the base is shaky. Most people try to jump straight to this story. I'm disciplined now. I'm consistent now. I'm a different person. That's too big. Your brain doesn't buy it. So it pushes back because identity doesn't need a big leap. It needs a small, believable upgrade. Not I finish everything, just I finish small things. Not I'm locked in forever, just I showed up today. That's it. When you complete something tiny, your brain quietly updates the story. Or maybe we do follow through. Or maybe this is safe. Or maybe we can do that again. That's how confidence actually forms. Not from hype, not from evidence, tiny evidence over and over. And once the story changes, the habit doesn't feel forced anymore. It feels normal. So now you have three things working together. The load is lighter, the environment isn't fighting you, and your identity isn't tearing you down. At this point, people usually ask one question. Okay, but what do I actually do every day? And that question matters because without something concrete, everything we talked about stays theoretical. So here's where all this lands. The answer isn't more effort. It's not trying harder. It's not pushing through. It's one simple rule you use when you feel stuck. Here it is. When you feel frozen, make the goal smaller until your body says, yeah, I can do that. That's it. Because when you're overloaded, your brain isn't being lazy. It's trying to protect you. So if the goal feels heavy, scary, or overwhelming, that's not a signal to push harder. That's a signal to shrink the steps. If workout feels impossible, the step is not the gym. The step is putting your shoes on. If start the business feels paralyzing, the step is not the plan. The step is writing one sentence. If fix my life feels crushing, the step is not discipline. The step is doing one small thing you can finish. Here's why this works. Every time you finish something small, your brain gets proof. Proof that says, I move, I finish, I'm not broken. That proof builds confidence without motivation. And confidence changes how the next step feels. And that's all you need. You just need a step small enough that your brain doesn't panic. That's how momentum actually starts. With evidence. You finally see the truth. You were never stuck. You were just carrying too much, too fast, with no systems to support it. And now you know how to start moving again. Earlier, I told you something simple. You're not lazy. If you were, this wouldn't bother you. You wouldn't feel this pull to do more. You wouldn't feel stuck and frustrated at the same time. So stop calling yourself broken. Stop calling yourself weak. Stop calling yourself lazy. Nothing is wrong with you. You don't need a new personality. You don't need more motivation. You don't need to hate yourself into change. What you're really feeling is ambition without support. You need a better way to move forward. Smaller steps, clear structure, proof you can finish things again. Because when the system fits the size of the dream, your brain stops hitting the brakes and the momentum comes back. And one day you look back and realize you weren't stuck, you weren't behind, you were just using the wrong system. And once you fix the system, everything starts to move. And if you're ambitious and tired of blaming yourself, hit subscribe. We're fixing systems here, not yelling motivation. And if you want to see how this mindset turns into real decisions, especially when you're starting without clarity, capital, or momentum, watch this video. This is Grit Behind Growth, where we stop blaming ourselves and start building systems that actually work, one step at a time. Let's build it together.